Hey YouTube. Today's topic is going to be school lunches. I've wanted to do something on school lunches for a long time. Not sure if I've touched on it on any of my videos, but because the argument in favor of school lunches is so compelling on its face, and there's really nobody in the mainstream political narrative or really outside it that's opposing school lunches. So I wanted to be the 10th dentist. I wanted to see if I could make the case against school lunches. And okay, so what's the argument in favor of it? It seems to be a few things. The first being children get fed, they're better learners, they're doing better in school, and also some children might not necessarily be getting full meals at home, neglectful parents, or they're really busy, whatever it may be. And it seems to me that people want it to be a universal program so that students on school lunches don't get singled out. Okay, so there's a couple issues right away. And the first is the cost. I know during COVID, I returned to Canada and I was interned at a hotel at great expense to the taxpayer for 2 weeks, I think it was, as like a quarantine measure. And during that time, we got fed prepackaged meals at the taxpayer's expense. And so one of the quarantine hotels uh, during the quarantine was the Westin, Calgary Airport. And it housed only 15 people that entire time and cost the government $7 million. The cost was $2,000 a night. This was during the 2022 calendar year, costing a total of $500,000 per person. Now, that was a bit of an outlier. Over the course of the 2.5 year time period, the hotel housed 1,500 people, costing the government 27 million, or about 20,000 per person. The total cost of all the quarantine hotels was 400 million. Anyway, I couldn't determine how much of that cost was the meals, but my concern about the school lunch program, the first is that it'll be extremely expensive to the taxpayer. That whenever the government does something, it tends to be fairly costly. If you remember back in the good old days of the Obama presidency, there was the Michelle Obama school lunch controversy where a lot of students were tweeting pictures of their school lunches and saying, "Thank you, Michelle Obama." So the second issue is what sort of lunches are we going to be dealing with? Uh, and what is the quality of these lunches going to be? Are we talking about slop on a plate or actual quality lunches? Another issue surrounding the school lunches is whether they'll be healthy or not. And this is problematic because there's no real consensus on what constitutes a healthy lunch. I think almost everybody, or there is sort of a consensus that like really sugary stuff, especially added sugar, is bad. Like chocolate donuts or sweets. So I think there's some consensus there, but what is the optimal diet for human health? A lot of people will say vegetarian or pescatarian or the Mediterranean diet. Other people will say you got to limit your carbs, eat a lot of animal fats, animal protein. So there's substantial debate, and uh, whatever you choose, one side is going to view it as unhealthy. So I don't believe that there is an academic or scientific consensus on what the optimal diet is. Nutrition is one of the softer sciences, and there's been a lot of research, a lot of studies, but I don't think we can say conclusively one way or another. And that's part of the reason why letting people make their own decisions about their health and about what they're eating and what they spend their money on is better than, say, having some monolithic centralized authority making the decision for everybody, because you alone are bearing all the risk and consequences from the decision you make about the foods you eat. So, in that sense, the the risk and the reward are sort of perfectly aligned with individual agency and you making your own decisions. So I think there is a little more nuance to this subject than the narrative coming out of mainstream discussions would have you believe. I'd also like to question this assumption that you necessarily learn better when you're satiated. And I'm certainly not an expert on human physiology or teaching pedagogical science, but uh, I have noticed some people have observed that while fasting, they experience heightened mental acuity. It could well be that cognition and memory retention are heightened when we're in a fasted state. It sort of makes sense if you think about mankind from an evolutionary perspective. For hundreds of thousands, millions of years, we were hunter gatherers and mostly on the hunting side of things. So back then, hunger posed a real threat. And as we got hungrier, it would make sense that uh, we sort of put all our energy into cognition so that we could figure out how to capture some animals so we could stay alive. Conversely, if you eat a big meal, often you get groggy, satiated, you take a nap. I'm not going to say categorically, being fasted is the best learning state for everybody. It might depend on your body mass index. Maybe a scrawny kid does need uh, to eat before they learn, whereas an overweight one doesn't. There could be differences. I'm just saying that I personally have observed that my mind operates better while in a fasted state. And there are questions about obesity as well. And that's another very delicate balance for any nutritional school lunch program to make. Where do you draw the line between excess calories and ensuring there's sufficient nutritional content to meet the needs of all the students? And again, here is where a one size fits all approach might not be appropriate. If there's a child that's suffering from obesity, then their needs are going to be significantly different than an athlete, and their needs are going to be significantly different from a extremely thin but not particularly active student. Obesity is on the rise in Canada. Uh, Close to 1 in 3 Canadians aged 18 and older were obese in 2022. That's up from 1 in 5 in 2003. So for kids who are already receiving their full caloric intake at home, how is this going to play out for them? Obviously, the parents could adapt and feed the child fewer calories at home. But for children who are already prone to overeating or already have a problem with overeating, this is just going to be pouring grease on the fire. A lot of, especially high school students, have significant autonomy over their consumptive decisions. In fact, obesity is about to become the number one cause of morbidity and mortality now that smoking is on the way out. So maybe the school lunches could be a good thing. It depends on really how they implement it. What I think they should do is you've already got home ec students. So why not, harness that free labor, get them involved in the production of these lunches, source your food from local farms, have like a farm to table approach, get the home ec students doing all the prep and the serving. They're learning valuable life skills like how to cook a nutritious meal. You're using whole foods sourced from local farms. None of this commercial packaged, prepackaged crap, crackers. None of this. Don't take the easy way out and just purchase it from a food company. Set up the kitchen in the school. Have the kids actually doing all the meal prep and cooking and preparing these lunches, learning valuable vocational training and saving the school some money and supporting the local community. I think if you do it that way, then probably it would be a net good. But I do think there are some obstacles or issues that need to be worked around, and it's not quite as clear cut as school lunch is good. So we're going to see how the implementation of it goes and uh, go from there.